Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting back into Judgment Day with Judgment Day Omega, as it gives us more detail about what really changed after all this. Because with most things going back to normal, Judgment Day was really more so the introduction of the Eternals' New Testament. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for Judgment Day Omega, it's more of a follow-up to the conclusion of Judgment Day that mainly focuses on the Eternals, since almost everything else had went back to normal in Judgment Day issue 6, except for the Eternals, because for them there's been a whole reshuffling, with Cersei dying as a martyr, and the progenitor transferring its power to Ajax, and transforming her into Ajax Celestia, the new god of the Eternals, to where from there with the new god, the Eternals have pretty much also got a new church. So with that, there's also going to be a shift in the role that everyone's playing, which again seems like it's the whole point of this Omega issue. But with how this is done, a lot of it is just laid out for us in a Prime Eternal daily primer, which also lets us know that from here moving forward, there's a new schism between the Eternals, which now separates those who follow Xurus as the Orthodox Eternals and those who now follow Ajax Celestia as the heretics. But starting with the Orthodox, we get a primer that's provided by Xurus, who we had seen in issue 6 had stepped back into the role of Prime Eternal. And early on in this primer, he mentions that Eros is a true Eternal and needs to be treated as such. And now for Eros, his new position is Pope Minister for Change. And for Eros in this position, he'll be advising Xurus, the Prime Eternal, during this period. But then after this, Xurus then goes on to say that since the secret of resurrection is now no longer a secret, all plans to make it secret again have been rejected. Because for the Eternals, as it stands right now, they've pretty much taken the lead as the most hated group. Because with Cersei telling the world the truth, which as we've seen got her killed, but with her dying, this is arguably one of the main factors that has given the Eternals their second chance. Which for the Eternals as a whole, it's good that they have this second chance, this next opportunity to do and be better. But as far as them winning back the good graces of humanity, it's probably gonna be a long time before we see anything like that. And again, not to say that it won't happen, but it's probably just gonna be a long time. And I say this because as we're shown Icarus go to visit Sophia, the mother of Toby Robson, who had died as a result of the Eternals' resurrection protocol. Because whenever an Eternal dies, a human life must be taken to bring them back. And like we'd seen, when Icarus was resurrected, Toby's life was the cost of bringing Icarus back. But with us seeing Icarus go to visit Sophia, it almost seems as if her reaction to the loss of her son is a bit of a metaphoric foreshadowing of humanity's response to all of this. Because I could see this taking us through the cycle of humanity being upset, and for good reason, and this anger could lead to certain groups going after the Eternals, only to find that this more harm to themselves, much like what we see here with Sophia. But in the long term, I do believe that a level of forgiveness will come from most of humanity, but also I imagine that there will be a minority of the human population who will never let this go. But with getting back to some of the things that Xurus had mentioned, he tells all of the Eternals about the recent alliance that he had made with the Krakoan and the Araki mutants, which includes a variety of specific promises. But in addition to this, within the primer, Xurus goes on to forewarn all the Eternals that if any of them act against the mutants for any reason, they will be excluded. And after this, Xurus goes on to say that they have reparations to make to the human government, which includes access to energy sources and specific technologies, because again, the Eternals have made mistakes and they're trying to be better. But also in this primer, he goes on to inform all of the Eternals about Druig and how, like we'd seen before, he'd been excluded, as well as making mentions to the machine being reset in the process of saving the planet, which may also change the tone of the machine moving forward, but I guess that's something we'll have to wait and see. But also I had to say, most notably within this primer that we got from Xurus, is where he mentions Ajax Celestia, and he makes the announcement that anyone who follows her places themselves outside of their society, and if their actions interfere with the Eternals' principles, then they will be captured and excluded. Which right there lets us know that there's a schism between Xurus and Ajax Celestia, with Xurus not condoning Ajax's New Testament, but at the same time he's not actively against it or trying to stop it, but he's more so like, we don't have a problem unless the changes that she brings conflict with Xurus and the existing principles. But then it's here where we jump over to Ajax Celestia and the new principles for the new church, which for the most part are the same. But also with looking at these, you can almost see where there's going to be a problem pretty soon, or at least where there could be a problem. Because for the most part, you still have your protect the Celestials, protect the machine, correct excess deviation, so at its core, it's more or less the same. But for Ajax, unlike before, when it comes to protecting the Celestials, there's now a clause where the Eternals can attack a Celestial, with Judgment Day being an example that Celestials are not always right. But in addition to this, Ajax Celestia also urges the Eternals to justify themselves daily, because every day matters and they should act where they can as often as they can. Which from here brings us to a number of different instances and examples, like again when we see Icarus returning to see Sophia with his head shaven, and we find that she's willing to hear what he's going to do, because even with the loss of her son, she wants to know that some type of good is coming out of this. And with Icarus going to speak to her, it lets us know that there's no job too big or too small. Whether it's Icarus making the trip to even talk to her and explain all of this, or even Icarus providing a tire for a family who's found themselves stranded. And from here we go on to see Phastos melting a gun, preventing some dude from getting clapped. We see Thena swooping in and saving another guy from getting hit by a cavalcade, or at least that's the vehicle it appears to be. And aside from this, we also see Sprite, who steals a wallet from a rich guy and hands it to a homeless guy, which is kind of questionable behavior, because a negative followed by a positive is like you in the same place. But then after this, we then see Makari going in to stop the police from shooting someone, to where then finally we see Icarus hovering over the world like he's Henry Cavill. But throughout the course of this, we do get something very interesting when we see Phastos go to Krakoa. And of course, initially on his arrival, he's anything but welcome there, but he knows that and he understands that. But what's interesting is the reason why he's come to Krakoa. Because with him arriving here and the machine being reset, we find that he's come to give Krakoa a message that is from the machine that is to be given to Krakoa. And it's through the course of this where Phastos explains that 1,000,000 years ago, when the Celestials had came to Earth and they had transformed humans into Eternals and Deviants using them as templates, they had also created the machine itself. And they looked for an inspiration for a huge sentient system that runs throughout the very planet. And back at that time, 1,000,000 years ago, they found the living island already here, which at the time was Krakoa, which is what the Celestials used as a template for the machine. And I gotta say that I really like how this is done. And not only because it reaffirms the history of Krakoa, which we got in Hickman's run, but also it ties it to the Eternals in a new way that doesn't conflict with Hickman's run. And on top of this, it also gives us the full explanation of why Druig cannot attack Krakoa, like we'd seen him attempt to in Eve of Judgment issue 1, because Krakoa is the template for the machine. And to go a step further, we also get Phastos telling Wolverine what the machine had actually said in that message, which was actually goodbye, mommy/daddy/self/other. But yeah, with this Omega issue, I don't see it so much as a good ending for the Judgment Day event, because I'm pretty sure if anyone looks to this issue for that, then they're probably gonna think that it's mid. But instead, I see it more as a true conclusion to Kieran Gillen's Eternals, because even though it's titled Judgment Day, it's really more about the Eternals here than anything else in this Omega issue. But also, I imagine whenever the next Eternals series pops up, that this issue will probably be the best place for a lot of people to start, because really for the Eternals, this is where their new era begins. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.